What's up, kinfolk? Welcome to our UFL show on the number one college football show. I am your host, RJ Young. Thank you for watching on the Fox Sports app, YouTube, or listening wherever you get your podcast. Today, we are in the playoffs of the UFL with conference championship games in the XFL and the USFL. And to get us set for that, let's take a final look at my power rankings after 10 weeks of regular season football. So we're going to start at number 8 and go all the way up to 1. And number 8 and number 7 are really significant this week more than any other week, because at number 8, I got the Houston Roughnecks, who finished the season 1-9. Couldn't get a second win this year. And frankly, it hurts on 2 occasions. One, you lose to the Memphis Showboats, who until they beat you were 1-8, and they're now in the number 7 spot. But the reason that is significant in the UFL is we don't have a toilet bowl in the UFL. We be playing for keeps, right? So the worst teams were playing this week for the opportunity to have the number 1 overall pick and the number 1 pick in each subsequent round of the 2025 UFL draft. So there's absolutely stakes. You're trying to make your roster better. You got to go win the game to do that, or be guaranteed that opportunity to have the first pick in 2025. And the Memphis Showboats were able to do it, so they're up at 7, right? I think that it's been difficult for John DeFilippo's squad all year long. In this game, he actually gave up the play calling privileges, gave those to Doug Martin, who had a rapport with Josh Love, who got the start, and did enough for them to win the game. Darius Victor also had 2 TDs in that game, and this puts a bow on Memphis for me. Darius Victor was the 2022 USFL Offensive Player of the Year when he was a New Jersey General. And it's because he could get into the end zone. This year, he had 1 multi-rush TD game, and that was the final game of the season to get them their second victory and secure that number 1 pick for them. So, again, I thought it was going to be much better than it was, given the roster, given what John DeFilippo was able to do with the New Orleans Breakers before becoming the head coach of the Memphis Showboats. Just didn't go that way. Number 6 on the list, I had the DC Defenders, who finished the season 4-6 after going 9-1 last year. And for me, it was twofold. They couldn't stop anybody on defense, right? One of the worst scoring defenses in the league, even with Greg Williams giving us outstanding sound bites. And they couldn't protect the quarterback, because when Jordan Ta'amu was upright and moving around and making things happen, he was as good as any quarterback in the league. Full stop. He just did not have a run game, and he didn't have a consistent receiving core that could help pick him up. He had some plays, and they made some plays, but you're going to be able to stop people and or run the ball if you're trying to win, or going to win, I should say. And they just couldn't get it done against the Arlington Renegades, who I have at number 5 because they finally got that win over the DC Defenders. Now, the thing about the Renegades is I thought that this was a talented team on paper to start the season, and I still think it is. It's just games would get away from them. Either the defense would completely let them down, or the offense wouldn't keep up its end. In this one, they avenged a 1-point loss to the Defenders with a 1-point win at Audi Field. It's a great way to go out. Also got to feel good about winning your last 3 straight if you're Bob Stoops, and winning 3 out of 4, I should say. 3 out of 4, not your last 3 straight, but 2 wins. So 3 out of your last 4 after getting off to such a horrible start and really not being in the XFL playoff picture at all in a year in which, well, you're defending the legacy XFL championship. And I thought that perhaps they were going to make just a little bit more of a run, but they finished 3-7 this year, but ahead of the Defenders in the power ranking. So that's something, right? And then number 4 on the list, I have our first of 4 playoff teams. That's the San Antonio Brahmas, who finished the season at 7-3 and really have shown they are a defensive-minded team. And they take great pride in their defense. Like, that's the number 1 scoring defense in the league. And no surprise, Wade Phillips, who is a defensive-minded head coach, has seen a lot to that, right? Jordan Mosley's been playing outstanding when he's been on the field. They've had really great runs of keeping people scoreless. And against the St. Louis Battlehawks last week, I thought maybe they were going to be able to do a magic trick, which is to go into a place that routinely has 34,000 people screaming at you and maybe steal a win so they can get the right to host the XFL championship game, but it didn't go that way. So now they got to go back to St. Louis to play against the Battlehawks in what is probably going to be a more raucous atmosphere than the one they played in last week, because there's a championship on the line with this one. But I also think Jason Garber's going out early didn't help their fortunes for San Antonio. You had Quentin Dormady, who was coming in after being the midseason starter, having to run back to the sideline to get the play call because he couldn't hear A.J. Smith at his headset. That's how loud it is at the Dome at America Center in St. Louis, and really just couldn't get into a rhythm. But more than that, the defense played well enough to win. They could not run the ball. And that's a problem for San Antonio. Now, they didn't have John Lovett or Anthony McFarland, their two best tailbacks, in that game against St. Louis. Maybe getting them back this weekend changes your fortunes running the ball. And if they're able to run the ball, it's not a 13-12 loss. Perhaps it's even a win for them. So they're going to have to do this. And in the best circumstances, play 2 more games in St. Louis. You don't want to have to go there. You don't want to go there and lose this game, obviously, but you also don't want to go there and lose it the way that you did last week. Find a different way to lose it, right? And hope that you can get your run game going. Number 3 on the list, I got the St. Louis Battlehawks, who got that win and have the right to host the XFL championship game. It also means that St. Louis gets to play at home for the entirety of the playoffs. And I'm struggling to find a corollary for that in professional football, let alone high school football. Like, we would be livid if we had to go to somebody's home stadium to play for a state championship. Sure, it happens, but we'd still be mad about it. And because of the nature of the UFL, and because this was a site that was set before the season start, it's just the way that it is, right? Every now and again, a Super Bowl team has the opportunity to play at home if they make it to the Super Bowl. Next year's in New Orleans. If the Saints could do it, they would do it. But being able to play back-to-back, that's unheard of for me, right? Like, I don't know that we have ever seen that. So St. Louis ought to take advantage of that. And Anthony Beck has already put out the call. He's like, everybody in the city of St. Louis needs to show up to the Dome on Sunday, when they play the San Antonio Brahmas, because having that 12th man was really important for the Battlehawks. They were just upsetting the offense for San Antonio that wanted to go fast, that wanted to do its run and shoot, and wanted to be able to get in and out of its play calls and just couldn't do it. I think A.J. McCarron would love to play a better game than he did against the Brahmas in his first game back from injury. He did not look good. Hakeem Butler, who is the best wide receiver in the league, didn't look good either. If not for Julian Sailors, I'm not sure what the offense might have been able to do at all. I should say Julian Sailors and Wayne Gallman. So let's say the run game against the Brahmas. Again, it's going to be the same defense, and you're going to need the Battlehawk defense to step up and do what it did, because I think if the game continues to go the way that it did last week, where you talk about 13 versus 12, that plays more to the San Antonio Brahmas, because they're going to come in there with Quentin Dormady probably as the starter, and they're going to return their running backs. You're going to have to show up and move the football if you are the St. Louis Battlehawks. Number 2 on the list, I have the Michigan Panthers, who looked every bit like not doubling up, but handing a second straight loss to the Birmingham Stallions at Protective. Danny Etling looked like a dude out there. For the first time all year, I looked at Danny Etling going, okay, that might actually be one of the better quarterbacks in our league. That said, they had a 16-6 lead. The Birmingham Stallion offense looked bad. Adrian Martinez looked the worst he'd looked all year. The Birmingham defense didn't look like it could stop anybody, especially seam routes. It just looked like their zone coverage was getting picked apart. And then in the third, fourth quarter, Skip Holtz, Adrian Martinez, they figured it out. They gave themselves an opportunity to take a lead at the end, and then Jake Bates missed what would have been the game winner from 53 yards and handed not just the number 1 seed, but the USFL regular season championship to the Birmingham Stallions. Insult to injury on this one. They were already going to have to play in Protective because of scheduling conflict at Ford Field if they were the number 1 seed. That said, you would love to have known that you got that win and that it doesn't really matter because, well, Protective Stadium has not had the atmosphere that, say, St. Louis has. But that's still a tough team to put away. And they showed tremendous backbone in being able to pull out a win in a game that, frankly, you're playing for pride if you're Birmingham. You don't want to show everything you have because you have the playoff spot and you want to get healthy to go win a game that absolutely matters so you can get to play in St. Louis for the inaugural UFL championship. But the Panthers showed me a great defense. I think Jake Bates is going to make that kick in the future. I think he's betting his NFL future on it. And if Danny Etling can play the way that he played against in the first half, they're good. Now, again, injuries are happening to everybody and they want to get healthy at other spaces, but they showed that they can beat the Birmingham Stallions. They just didn't finish. Now they got to show that they can finish. Number 1, I got 9-1 Birmingham Stallions. Like it's full stop. For the second straight year, Skip Holtz goes 9-1 the regular season. He's able to find a quarterback that everybody else might think is damaged goods and turn that guy into an MVP caliber quarterback. He's got stalwarts on that offense and that defense. That staff is outstanding. I'm still picking them to win the UFL championship, and I think that they're going to get tested by the Panthers, but it feels like we're at the beginning of a dynasty, and I'm working on a story about Birmingham and how this thing has come together over 3 years. Really excited about that. Look for that later this week on foxsports.com. Talk with a bunch of different people, get a lot of different views about why it works at Birmingham and what has made it more difficult and also more impressive what Skip Holtz has done in just 3 years as being a professional football head coach. All right, those are my UFL Week 10 power rankings. Let's talk about my UFL Awards. So start with MVP on this one and Offensive Player of the Year. For me, it's Birmingham Stallions quarterback Adrian Martinez, who didn't start the season as a starter, but still won the UFL rushing championship. Hello. And was one of the 3 best passers in this league. I think if you give him all of those games to start, he joins Luis Perez as one of just 2 guys that would have thrown for 2,000 yards in this league and probably be the first guy to throw for 2,000 and rush for 500-600, right? Given some time in this league. He's also showed tremendous growth. This is a guy at Nebraska and Kansas State, for that matter, who just couldn't always be trusted to throw the football down the field. And Skip Holtz and Philip Montgomery have done so much work to help that guy see the field the way he needs to see it. And they trust him. And anybody that's met Adrian Martinez knows that he is a stately man, right? A classic man, if you will. I trust him to understand what the circumstances are. You want him to be fronting your franchise. And now his play is reaching the level of his maturity. And that's really thrilling for me to see. He's going to have an opportunity to make an NFL training camp. I mean, hell, he did last year. He was playing for the Detroit Lions, and they were lucky to get him at Birmingham. I realized that in the USFL, they split the MVP and the Offensive Player of the Year. Seems fair. Like last year, Alex Magoo was the MVP, but Mark Thompson was the Offensive Player of the Year. I don't believe in that. I think that if you are the best player on the offense, then you are the MVP and the MVP, then you should get both trophies. I just think that that's fair. If they decide that they want to split this up, it would not shock me to see that a guy like Hakeem Butler ends up being an Offensive Player of the Year while Adrian Martinez is the MVP. But it would be shocking to find out that Adrian Martinez doesn't win the MVP. Defensive Player of the Year, I think, is a little bit more of a race here. And I'm picking Breeland Speaks because Breeland leads the league in sacks. He's really great with tackles for loss. And more than that, you watch the Panthers play. He plays all over the defensive line. He can play defensive tackle. He can play defensive end with his hand on the ground. He can stand up and go after people. He's got a tremendous motor. He's running people down from behind. And I think that the defense totally shifts if he isn't on the field for the Panthers for most of the year. He's coming off a second straight outstanding year for the Panthers and trying to win their first playoff game if they can. The other guys that I think could be up for this, Jordan Mosley, who leads the league in tackling, and then Kai Nakua, who's been outstanding as just a ball hawk free safety. Like, he understands the game, the way that he reads, run, goes to pass, and then has 3 interceptions tied for the league. I can understand him getting votes, but I really think that this is a pass rusher award. Chris Odom won this award in 2022 for starters, right, in the USFL. And I think, last year was a pass rusher too. So it's really difficult for a defensive back to win this award, let alone a linebacker, even though I think Donald Payne probably should have won the Defensive Player of the Year in 2022 because he had more than 100 tackles in 10 games. Didn't play to those standards this year, but you understand my point here. I think that Breeland Speaks is the best player for this award, and I think it also is the player they want to give the award to. Special Teams Player of the Year. Surprise, surprise. Panthers kicker Jake Bates. It's not a surprise, right? I'm not surprised. Nate Diaz. When you hit not just 1, but 2 kicks from 62, 64 yards, you're gonna turn some eyes, right? That's 2 yards off the NFL record in the same stadium where Justin Tucker set that record at Ford Field, right, where the Detroit Lions play. But this is a guy that came out of nowhere to be dominant, right? Like, and to really get our attention. Like, I had him ranked in the MVP conversation because I thought he was that important to what the Panthers could or couldn't do. And you could see that. Like, he was the difference between them winning and losing the regular season title to the Birmingham Stallions. He makes that kick. You're talking about a guy that still is in the MVP conversation and is locked for Special Teams Player of the Year. As it is, Andre Schmidt might might nudge him out of this, but that would be because he made more field goals than Jake Bates and because he also hit from 60. Not for nothing, Cole Murphy hit from 60 a couple years ago. We've also seen outstanding kickers make it in the NFL, like Brandon Aubrey, who famously goes from the Birmingham Stallions to the Dallas Cowboys to kicking for them to special teams rookie of the year to NFL All-Pro, right? All in the same year. So there's some legacy that Jake Bates is learning or living up to as well. I also think it's important to note that this guy was not brought in to kick field goals. He was brought in to kick it deep because this is a league where you kick off from the 10-yard line, and the kick returner was expected to be a bigger deal, as he was in the 2022 USFL when the MVP was Cavante Turpin, who's also made a name for himself the year before playing kick return for the Dallas Cowboys, right? Special teams is a really great way to not just make a name for yourself in the professional spring football, but to make an NFL roster and then win postseason awards in the NFL. Remember that Cavante Turpin was a first-team All-Pro for the Dallas Cowboys, according to the players, the guys he played against. That's outstanding. I think Jake Bates is going to be able to have a similar career. You just got to get a shot at training camp, and he's going to get one. And then Coach of the Year, Skip Holtz. I am floored by just what he has accomplished in 3 seasons as a professional football coach. This is a man who got started coaching ball in 1987. So he's been coaching ball for 36 years. He got his first head coaching job at UConn in 1994. He went to La Tech as his last college football post, had a losing season in 2013, and then reeled off 6 straight without a losing season, 5 straight appearances, 5 straight bowl victories, 6 straight appearances in bowl games, had a losing season, got fired in 2021, got this opportunity to coach in the USFL, now the UFL, and held on to it with both hands and for dear life. He has turned that into 2 championships, 3 regular season titles, and a 30-4 record as a professional head coach in a league where turnover is the rule. You're going to lose players. You're going to lose coaches. It is you who has to hold the whole damn thing together year to year. And Skip Holtz has learned to do that. And oh, by the way, was able to do that while serving as consultant, as the lawyers call it, what I call coaching at Northwestern. In a year where Northwestern was dead in the water, hazing scandal, Pat Fitzgerald, not just a long-time head coach, but one of the best players that they'd ever produced at Northwestern, he's relieved of his duties. David Braun is made the head coach. He'd never been a head coach before. He was just hired January last year to be the defense coordinator. And who does he call? Skip Holtz. Please help me. Help me do this job that I didn't know that I was doing, that I don't know how to do. And Skip did what he expects all of his players and coaches to do. He was hands to serve. He was supposed to go over to Europe with his wife to have the first fall off he's had in damn near 40 years. And no, he moved to Evanston, Illinois to help David Braun put that football program back on its feet, and they go 8-5. They win 4 straight. The next loss they have will be their first in the last 5 games. And he was thrilled to do it, all while coming back to this league, which is new, which got better, which got more talented, and puts together a 9-1 season. He's coached football basically for the last year straight. So he probably needs to take this fall off. But I think it would shock me to find out that he is not coach of the year in 2024. I'm floored by what he's been able to do, and I'm really thrilled for Birmingham. It is a city that I've got to know very well. I haven't spent a lot of time there. They love this team. They deserve a winner, and it's been great to see professional football thrive there. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of the UFL show on the #1 college football show. Our #1 college football show leads of screening are Jack Coakley and Torrin Westfall. They make us better in the film room. Additional support from Kiara Santana and Jim Cunningham put the special in our special teams. Producer Davion Duncan makes sure the recruits and the rivals see the cake we bake. Technical director Gabe Sable sends in the signals. Senior producer Catherine Cordaji sees the entire field from the booth. Lead producer Tyler Wojak calls the plays from the sideline, and the play snaps on my clap. We'll be back here live next Tuesday talking all things college football. Until then, stay low. Keep those feet driving. Deuces.